There are different kinds of spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit. There are different forms of service, but the same Lord. There are different workings, but the same God, who produces all of them in everyone. 50 years ago, the Missouri Catholic Conference was a vision of Catholic leaders who saw the four dioceses working together on common concerns regarding issues arising in the public square. In 1967, that vision became a reality. Since that time, the Missouri Catholic Conference has been the voice of the Catholic Church in Missouri, defending the unborn, the dying, the sick, and the poor, calling for the fair participation of Catholic school children in education programs, and upholding religious liberty for all. Throughout its 50-year history, the conference has sought the common good for all Missourians, not just Catholics. Former Speaker of the Missouri House, Ken Rothman, put it this way: the MCC is the conscience of the legislature. On countless occasions, the MCC has called on elected officials to follow the better angels of their nature, to protect the sanctity and dignity of all human life, and to put those ideals above partisan politics. However, the work of the conference has never been just about the bills and laws or other details of government, but something bigger, building what St. John Paul called a culture of life. Along the way, there have been triumphs and defeats. Passing a ban on partial birth abortions over a governor's veto was a big pro-life victory. But abolishing the death penalty remains a goal the MCC has not yet achieved. This work has involved many gifted people. Early leadership came from the diocesan Catholic school superintendents. In 1965, Congress passed the first federal education law, which required the fair participation of private school children. But in Missouri, state officials dragged their feet. Monsignor James Curtin, superintendent of the Catholic schools of the Archdiocese of St. Louis, responded by exploring the idea of a new statewide body that would advocate for Catholic school children. His assistant, Father John Liebrecht, later bishop of the Diocese of Springfield, Cape Girardeau, also played a key role. In 1966, the superintendents expanded their discussions to include the diocesan attorneys and other Catholic leaders. Finally, in March of that year, the Missouri bishops, St. Louis's Cardinal Joseph Ritter, Bishop Charles M. Helmsing of Kansas City St. Joseph, Bishop Joseph M. Marling of Jefferson City, and Bishop Ignatius J. Strecker of Springfield, Cape Girardeau, approved the idea of a Missouri Catholic Conference. Anthony Hiesberger, a Jefferson City native and former seminarian, became the executive director. He served until 1972, visiting parishes and building relationships with the Council of Churches, the Missouri Baptist Convention, and other faith groups. The years 1969 and 1970 brought three key figures to the conference. Louis C. DeFeo became the MCC's general counsel. Marie Bruns took on bookkeeping chores, and the new bishop of the Jefferson City Diocese, Bishop Michael F. McAuliffe, became executive chairman. Many others involved in MCC's 50-year history have been unsung heroes. People like Stefana Landwehr, who organized pro-life citizens for the MCC, She also helped write a Midwest bishop's response to the farm crisis, the prophetic strangers and guests toward community in the heartland, which anticipated many of the themes later sounded by Pope Francis in Laudato Si. Stefana's brother, Karl Landwehr, worked behind the scenes at the MCC to build up the pro-life movement and later established the Vitae Foundation. Or Father Syl Bauer or Sister Carleen Reck, who spent years advocating for more humane prison conditions. There was a pipe-smoking Kansas City priest named Father Frank Schuley, who dug into complicated government papers to develop research and arguments for the MCC on tax reform and economic justice legislation. Molly Kurtz and Father Joe Nauman rallied the St. Louis pro-life forces, while Rosie San Paulo and Sharon Wiedelman did the same work in southern Missouri. May Dugan and Herman Kriegshauser offered the support of Citizens for Educational Freedom on school choice, and Sam Lee of Campaign Life never failed to support the MCC on pro-life efforts. The list goes on and includes staff members who have made the office run smoothly and efficiently. During her time as executive director of the MCC, Peggy Keilholz navigated the purchase of the MCC's current office at 600 Clark Avenue, and the many volunteers who for years have made sure the MCC's annual assemblies were well organized. And finally, there are those thousands of citizens who, through the years, have responded to MCC's calls to action by contacting their legislators, urging them to support social justice and pro-life bills. Political partisans are often perplexed by positions of the conference. They want the MCC to be Republican or Democrat, but the MCC follows the beat of a holier drummer. The mission of the MCC is not focused on loyalty to any political party's agenda and does not always follow the path of popular opinion. Throughout its 50 years, the MCC has sought to listen to the promptings of the Holy Spirit and offer the moral teaching of the Church to an often divided and violent world. Even in the aftermath of mass terrorist attacks, the MCC has called for compassion and openness to refugees fleeing war-torn countries. Even when legislators have said there's no chance of abolishing the death penalty or creating a more just criminal justice system, the MCC has trudged on, following the words of St. Teresa of Calcutta. We are called not to be successful, but faithful.
What we did with MCC especially was look at the issues and try to help people look at the issues. You know, there's a lot of talk about it costs so much money to build more prisons. Well, we may have approached those same issues, but we approached them from the human cost. Is it really the best thing for everyone? Is it really even needed in the community for safety for everybody who violates something to be locked up? If we keep locking up, we have to keep building more prisons, which is a great cost to the state taxpayers, but it's also a cost to the people. If somebody has written a bad check, wouldn't it make more sense to let them stay in the community earning money to pay back a time and a half or double for that check? But the first thing that somebody says who's gotten taken advantage of is lock them up. So a lot of what we have done with MCC's Correction Task Force has been to try to get people to rethink. We were able to work with Judge Michael Wolf some years ago. He was one of the first who really said, let's rethink sentencing. What kind of sentencing is best, not only for the person, but for the community?
In spite of obstacles and disappointments, the Missouri Catholic Conference has found success by following the principles of Catholic faith in legislative efforts. The conference helped to organize a statewide pro-life movement, a response to the Roe v. Wade decision, including a new citizens group that later became Missouri Right to Life.
You know, part of the pro-life apostolate, there's always 4 dimensions to it. What undergirds it all is prayer, but then there's the educational component. You know, we have to change minds and hearts, and then there's the pastoral side of it, to provide alternatives to abortion and the care for post-abortive women and men. But then there's the advocacy component, and that's where the Missouri Catholic Conference, you know, I think was really so helpful to help guide us in terms of how could we be effective. And then as now, you know, I think the most important work in pro-life was happening at the state level, because there wasn't much you could do at the federal. And the states were kind of the laboratories, and so it was exciting to be part of that. And
in 1980, the conference issued a prophetic statement on corrections that called for compensation to crime victims and alternatives to incarceration for nonviolent offenders. In 1982, the Missouri bishops visited death row and supermax in the old Missouri Penitentiary in Jefferson City. In supermax, inmates were confined behind solid sheets of steel. To talk to them, the bishops had to get down on their hands and knees and speak through an open panel near the floor. When the farm crisis developed in the early 1980s, the conference was there, advocating for family farmers and publishing a pastoral guide to help parishes assist local farm families. In 1986, the conference spearheaded passage of landmark pro-life legislation, House Bill 1596. The new law, which remains in place today, prohibits the use of taxpayer money for abortions. In 1989, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld many of the provisions of the new Missouri law. The Webster decision marked the first serious breach in the Roe v. Wade dam, and the conference could claim a large share of the credit. From this time forward, states across the nation began to pass pro-life laws.
Very near a knocking down the wall. It prevailed on the public funding issues, which was a big thing. And just to give you a number measurement, prior to the enactment of the funding law, the public hospital in Kansas City was doing about 700 abortions a year. As soon as the law came, 0 abortions. So it totally cut out any public institutions in Missouri doing abortions. So it had significant value, even if it didn't do anything else. But the other point I wanted to make in my comment there, when Thurgood Marshall died, some of his personal papers got public. Something that's very rare for Supreme Court justice papers to become public. And among those papers was his sincere fear that in the Webster case they were only 1 vote short of overturning Roe versus Wade. So it was that close to doing more than it actually did.
The 1990s saw the conference working successfully to put school nurses in Catholic schools, expand Medicaid for the needy, and ensure that Missouri participated in the federal Children's Health Insurance Program. Also in that decade, the MCC's Lou DeFeo played a key role in the passage of the Durable Power of Attorney Law, which protects the right to life of the terminally ill and the dying. In 1993, the Missouri Catholic Conference responded to the Great Flood by building a network of faith groups. The Flood Recovery Partnership developed some 50 committees around the state to address the unmet needs of flood victims. The MCC sought to ban the horrific practice of partial birth abortions. In the fall of 1999, over 5,000 people rallied at the Capitol, and the Missouri General Assembly responded by overriding Governor Carnahan's veto on the ban. The new century found the MCC once again trying to scale back the death penalty. In 2001, after a 10-year effort, the MCC secured passage of legislation that exempted those with mental retardation from capital punishment.
And because we have some basic Catholic principles that we operate out of. And first and foremost is the dignity of the human person. And no human being surrenders his or her dignity because of what they did. But we want to treat people that way. Back in 1973, I wrote this paper, and I said some of the reasons for opposing capital punishment then still apply today. Because the basic idea behind any form of punishment is that it needs to be swift and sure. And capital punishment's neither. It's not swift and it's not sure because we don't want to be in the position of putting an innocent person to death.
Also in 2001, when Governor Bob Holden pushed a contraceptive mandate for all insurance plans, the MCC successfully amended the bill to allow people with moral objections to purchase a separate plan. The issue had to be revisited the following decade when the Obama administration mandated contraceptive coverage in insurance plans. The MCC responded by spearheading passage of Senate Bill 749, a law that reiterated in even stronger terms the conscience rights of churches and individuals in the insurance market. In 2014, the MCC worked with Missouri Right to Life, Sam Lee of Campaign Life, and others to pass a 72-hour reflection period before an abortion decision is made. In 2016, after years of effort, the MCC passed a law allowing graduates of Catholic and other private high schools to obtain A+ scholarships. Throughout its history, the MCC has sought policies where government and private agencies can work together for the common good. As a result, the state of Missouri offers grants and tax credits to charitable organizations like pregnancy resource centers, maternity homes, and food pantries. And just this summer, in 2017, the MCC worked with Missouri Right to Life, Campaign Life, and legislators such as Senators Andrew Koenig, Bob Onder, and Representative Jay Barnes to pass the most significant pro-life legislation in many years. This new law establishes annual inspection of abortion clinics, requires doctors to consult with women who are considering an abortion 72 hours before an abortion can be performed, and protects the religious liberty of citizens, ensuring that they are not forced to aid the abortion industry. For 50 years, Catholics from throughout the state of Missouri have contributed to the work of the Missouri Catholic Conference, and that work has advanced the common good of Missouri citizens, especially the poor and most vulnerable. There are indeed many different gifts, but the same Spirit. And the Missouri Catholic Conference will continue to welcome Catholics from all corners of the Show Me State in this great endeavor to bring the light of Christ to the world. Thank you for 50 faithful years. And here's to 50 more.